This is the final podcast of the semester, and in it we're going to try and wrap some things up and do some summaries. Let's look at the question of where we've been over the course of this semester. We started with the question, what is a human being? And we came up with the answer that a human being is a bio-psycho-social spiritual unity. Bio, because a human being undeniably has a biological, physical body. We all know that. Nobody needs to attempt to prove it. We have seen it. We see it every day. We see ours and we see other people's bodies. Every day we know that we're biological. In fact, medicine spends most of its time and energy treating this biological part of the human being. But a human being is also a psychological being, which means that the human being has a mind and has emotions, all of which stem from the brain and its various functions. So that the human being cannot be described simply as a biological organism, but must also be described as a biological and mental, intellectual, logical, rational, and emotional feeling organism. But then we have to go beyond that and say that the human being is also a social organism, which is to say that human beings love relationships, are made for relationships, do best in relationships, and get sick when they are cut off from relationships. But that's not all of it. Not only is a human being bio-psycho-social, but a human being is bio-psycho-social spiritual. A human being has a spiritual entity, a spiritual aspect, that and that influences the other aspects of the human being, so that they all interplay. And when we say that a human being is a unity, we're saying that a human being is put together in such a way that all the aspects of the human being influence one another. We ask the question, what does it mean to be spiritual? What is spiritual and spirituality? And we notice that the word spiritual derives through a number of ancient languages from the original idea of breath or wind. This traces back to Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, where God creates the human being out of the dust of the earth. He breathes into his nostrils the breath of life, and the human being becomes a living, functioning creature. So it is this entity that causes the human being to be alive, fully alive, that we're talking about when we talk about the spiritual part. As far as we know, while animals have these other characteristics, they don't have the spiritual characteristic. We speculate that that's what it means when Genesis says that God created the human being in his image. How do the various parts of the human being interact? Well, being that they're all connected, they all influence one another. Interesting that science is now finding these correlations in all kinds of ways, where the brain is influenced by the rest of the body, and the brain in turn influences the rest of the body. Each of the parts of the body communicate with other parts of the body through the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. The brain, through hormones, influences bodily functions in a whole variety of ways, and the brain is in touch with what's going on in the body and all of the internal organs. So that a human being truly is a unity. And if we're going to practice medicine, we better practice a medicine of the whole person, not just some aspect of the person. Not only is a human being not the gallbladder in room 257, but a human being is not a bad gallbladder either. A human being is not a person with cancer. A human being is a person, a personality, a persona, a unity with a multitude of characteristics and a whole life. Is there a scientific basis for spirituality influencing health? Well, yeah, there certainly is, and a lot of research is being done in this area, with the publication of nearly 2,000 peer-reviewed scientific articles in various peer-reviewed journals, all of which are demonstrating a huge connection between spirituality and health. Often these studies are about the connection between religion and health, which is to say the practice of spirituality, but the larger topic of spirituality clearly influences health, and positively. That is to say that there is a positive connection between the practice of spirituality and one's physical well-being, and that connection is on the order of the same positive influence that exercise or quitting smoking would have on a person's health. How does religion and spirituality affect health? Well, in a variety of ways, and you've looked at a number of those. There are some ways that are direct and some ways that are indirect. For example, the practice of religion usually involves the practice of connection with some religious community, and so there is a way in which a person who practices spirituality that way has social connections that people who do not don't have. And so that is a health benefit. But there are other aspects of it as well. Simply to have the sense of religious security, the sense of religious conviction, the sense of faith. Also to practice prayer and some of the mysteries that go along with that. But also by finding meaning and value and purpose through the practice of spirituality. All of these things are positive predictors for health. And there's even some research being done in how the brain handles spirituality and religion. So what aspects of the brain are influenced by this, and how does the brain then communicate those physical benefits to the rest of the body, is also a topic for study. Another way, of course, in which this happens is by the reduction of stress and the harmful effects that come from stress. And that topic, again, is being studied more and more.